My name is Cynthia Cinders. This is my Draw My Life. I was born into the most unpleasant royal family, and I didn't get the typical princess life. Being the youngest of three sisters, somehow I was chosen to be the maid of the family. And no, that's not an exaggeration. My jealous mother and stepsisters would make me do every chore possible. Chores ranging from scrubbing every floor in the house to washing the cat. It's safe to say I was the princess that needed to be saved. The royal family lives on the land over the hills. However, one day the king's son Preston came over to visit. He was mainly there to visit my stepsisters and inform them about the upcoming royal ball. However, he did not fail to notice me. He said a quick hello, winked, and went on his way. There was something in that moment that caught my eye. He was a mystery to be solved. This moment quickly became part of the past, and I continued on my life of nonstop chores. However, there was something on my mind that I just couldn't shake. I knew what I had to do. I had to attend the royal ball. It occurs once every year and it's huge. It was soon, and I would do everything it took to go. This was until my stepsisters learned of my plans. Since they were incredibly evil, they told my mother of my plans. Since my mother was completely against me going out and having fun, ever, mother made sure to ruin my chances of going to the ball. In fact, she grounded me. On the night of the ball, my mother and stepsisters put on their most adorned gowns and alluring jewelry. I sat locked in my room, listening to them giggle about all the night's events to come. I knew I would do whatever it took to go to the ball. I had to see the prince again. All I wanted was to talk to him. However, I felt defeated and thought I would never be able to go to the ball. After the carriage arrived and the family departed, I took out the spare key I always hid to unlock my door. I raced out of my room and into my sister's. I took out two dresses, one from each of their closets, and crafted my very own dress. I took one of Mother's diamond necklaces and scurried out of the house as quick as ever. The night started casual, and everyone from all the land was there. Everyone looked so elegant. I cautiously walked around, avoiding my distasteful mother and stepsisters. About halfway through the night, I saw the prince. He came over to me, and while he didn't recognize me entirely, he did mention I looked familiar. I replied with the same thing. He started to sweat at the thought of even making conversation with me. He became reserved and excused himself quickly. The time came to around midnight. I knew I had to leave soon, as my stepmother would be back, but Preston still had not returned. I had a feeling I was abandoned. I searched tirelessly around the ballroom floor for him. Everyone waited eagerly for Preston's speech, as he is the next heir to the throne. He never showed. The crowd was discouraged, and his father was enraged at such an act. The clock edged closer to 1 a.m., and while I knew I had to rush to get home, I had to find Preston, so I snuck out of a back door. The door brought me to a giant garden. Everything was so neatly trimmed. There was a fountain surrounded by red roses and a faint sound that could be heard. I shrunk down behind a stone arch and peered around the corner of the bushes. There sat Preston on his knees, sobbing. It was the kind of cry where you feel the tightness of your chest burning, and the tears choke out in between your breaths. I had never seen a prince cry so heavily. I sat there listening to his cries and calls for someone to help him and take away his problem. However, the clock struck 1 a.m. and I was an hour behind my family. I had to rush home before they got there. About 3 weeks later, I was outside scrubbing the cobblestone when the most beautiful girl walked up the driveway. I had never seen her before, and yet there was something all too familiar about her presence. In a quick moment she picked up my hand as I stood up, and looked into my eyes. My face froze and my thoughts still raced. I knew those eyes. She winked and smiled a big white smile. She introduced herself as Paris with a quivering voice. I said my name was Cynthia, and she winked at me. I quickly realized it was Preston. We sat on the steps and for a while just looked at each other. That led to questions, and then the conversation flowed like water. I told her about when I saw her crying in the garden, and how I never expected this to happen. There was a glimmer in Paris's eyes that longed for acceptance. She told me about how she had always loved me right from the beginning. That first glance gave it all away, I told her. We laughed and shared the most intimate personal moments. Weeks went on and we got close. Time seemed to fly by, and pretty soon it was time for the next royal ball. Paris and I decided to go together, and from that moment on, we knew that no one could stop the feelings we had for each other. We ended up living happily ever after, just as every princess should, and the entire town lived happily ever after.